Looks like a beaver was chewing on it or something. What's up everyone? This is Scott with Team 512 and I'm back with another video. This one's for the C5 Z06 and Fixed Roof Coupe owners. Now, if you have a C5 hardtop, you're probably well aware of a piece of trim called the reveal trim. And it's that piece of trim behind me that extends from the bottom of the A-pillar and extends up over top of the window up against the roof. Now, if you have a coupe, it's a little bit different because you have a removable target top. The hardtops obviously don't have that, so our piece of trim is one long piece. Now, this is a typical issue for hardtop C5s because they crack, usually right in this area here or even down here further. And they also are notorious for leaking. The one that I have on the driver's side here of my Fixed Roof Coupe has been broken since the day I bought the car last year, and it is a real eyesore. Now, this is a very expensive piece of trim. They average somewhere around $200, and I also just replaced the passenger side. Now, you guys know I like to do things once before I get on camera to show you the process so that I can familiarize myself with the process because I have never done this before. When I talk about cracking, you can see this was the one from the passenger side. So there was a bit of a hairline crack there, and so I figured I would just pull it off and replace it. But again, let's take a closer look at the one on the driver's side and get started. All right, now we see on the driver's side, we have a nice big crack here, and it looks like somebody tried to fix this with some gasket sealant at some point. And then we also have this nice little divot or chunk. Looks like a beaver was chewing on it or something. Such an eyesore to an otherwise nice looking car. Now, I want to explain a little bit about the sandwich of this trim. So, on both edges of the sandwich, you have the body and the weather stripping, so that's like the bread. And on the inside, you have this retainer, which is this metal piece running along here that actually holds the weather stripping into place. And when we pull this weather stripping out, you'll see that. And then behind the retainer, you have the reveal trim. So the reveal trim up against the body, then the retainer against the reveal trim, and then the weather stripping caps it off. So what we're going to have to do in order to replace this piece is we're going to have to pull the weather stripping out, and being careful not to rip or tear the weather stripping. This is a very expensive piece of weather stripping, so we want to keep this in place. We want to remove this retainer, and there's some Phillips screws that hold this into place. And we want to be careful not to bend or damage this metal retainer because I don't have another one, and I really couldn't find a part number for it, though I'm sure one exists. And then after we get the retainer out, then we can go ahead and pull both pieces of the reveal trim out and then replace it with a fresh new one. Let's get started. All right, in order to do this job, we really just need a few simple hand tools. Phillips head screwdriver, a plastic pry tool, and a T15 Torx. And the first thing we want to do is pull out all of this weather stripping, and again, being very careful not to tear. Okay, you can see the Phillips head screws here that are holding in the retainer. Whenever I'm working with body parts here, I don't typically like using anything but hand tools just because you never want to over tighten or strip out body panels. The other thing you have to be careful of is this headliner. If your car is old like mine, it's a 99, 20 years old, this headliner backing is starting to delaminate and it's a little crispy. So you want to be careful there. Now, this piece here is called a blowout clip. That is to make sure when your window is going up that it goes up and feeds straight up in here and doesn't blow out. And from the limited research that I've done, it seems that GM is no longer producing these blowout clips. So you just want to make sure you're careful with that. All right, we were able to successfully get that screw out. Now what I want to do is see if I can gently pull on this retainer. See if we can get it out without distorting the shape. Feels like there's a little bit of adhesive there, but nothing too major. And there we go. There's the blowout clip. It just kind of loops over top. And there's the retainer. Looks like we were able to keep it in its original shape. And we'll put this aside. Then we'll take out the Torx for the trim, and we'll start to replace it. For some screw heads. So if the retainer lays over top and there's screw holes in the retainer, there also has to be holes in this piece as well for the retainer screw to pass through in order to go into the body. I don't see anything. Yeah, there's just some adhesive back there. And there we go. So there's one half. You can see here's the broken piece here, and somebody tried to fix it with some window caulk. That's gone. And there you go. So the final screw is out. Now incidentally, if you ever get a new windshield put in your C5, this reveal trim needs to come off. So the person doing your windshield would be good to know that. And you got to be careful. But I'm just going to go ahead now and clean up some of this surface here, and then we'll start reattaching the new. So the new piece of reveal trim will come with all of this weather strip foam that rides up against the body of the car. And so there's still some of the old foam left over here that we want to get out. But one of the things I want to do is just test fit this piece. Obviously when you're doing this, you want to be as careful as you possibly can so you don't break the new one. That's going to need to be cut away here before we can install this flush. Alright, so I went around and cleaned up this whole area here. I left some of this black silicone caulk. What I'm going to do is, once I get everything back up in place, I'm going to go over it with some fresh black silicone, and it's like windshield sealant, and bring a bead across here and blend it in real well. So now it's just a matter of reinstalling the Torx heads, which this is not. And remember, there's a few sets of holes here, so you need to make sure you're putting a screw back into the hole for the reveal trim and not a screw for the retainer that sits over top of this. One of the ways you can tell is the reveal trim has slots that the screws go into. Look at that. So something I wanted to show you guys in this process that I didn't bring up prior is I'm using this stuff called 3M strip caulk, and you also hear it referred to as dum-dum rope. It comes in strips here. It creates a nice watertight barrier. There you go, you can see a piece here. It creates a nice waterproof, watertight barrier between the reveal trim in the body of the car and the retainer and the reveal trim. And what's great about it is pliable. It's got a little tack to it, but it doesn't dry with adhesive. So it won't stick all these parts together, because you might need to remove this. Remember, this is how you put a new windshield in. So you don't necessarily want any adhesives gluing all this stuff together, because you're going to have a heck of a time getting it back out. So you still want to be able to maintain the vehicle, and this strip caulk will do a great job. So I will put a bead between this retainer and the reveal trim, and like I said, I already have a bead between the reveal trim and the roof of the car. There you go. Alright, so I now have the retainer in place with just one screw. I have the strip caulk on the back side, and it's pressed up against the new piece of trim, and I'm going to go ahead and put in the rest of the screws. Now here is what's again called the blowout clip. So I put that screw in first. You can see the screw isn't tight all the way, and so we're just going to go and sink that in a little bit. And what will happen is, as I put in some of these other screws, we may have to go back and tighten some of the other ones as it pulls closer in. That does it for the retainer and the new reveal trim. Now we've got to get this weather stripping back on. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and put the weather stripping back in, and what I like to use is one of these plastic trim tools, and you'll see that there's actually a groove here in the weather stripping that fits underneath here, pops into place on the retainer that we put. And so what you need to do is you just need to press that, and you can hear it pop in. You just press it into the retainer until you hear it pop or make a little like click sound, and you just follow all the way down, and you'll see areas where it didn't click, and sometimes you need to massage it with your hand there. See, that just went in. Now this weather stripping doesn't look too bad. Again, remember, this is an expensive piece of weather stripping. I think they go for anywhere between $300 and $400 for a new one, so you definitely want to be careful, take good care of it, because it is another one of those mods like this one here, where you spend a lot of money and nobody will notice, and your car won't be any faster or perform any better. Alright, so the last step is to use some of this black Permatex adhesive sealant silicone right along the edge where the new trim meets the body of the car. And I've taped off the paint on the car so that I don't get any of the sealant on the paint, and then we're just going to wipe off with a paper towel off of the top of the trim. And I'm just going to start in the back here and just try to pull a nice tight bead of sealant, and then I'll go back over it with my finger, smooth it in. Doesn't look too bad. Let's go ahead and pull the tape off. And there we go. All sealed up. Well, that's another job well done here in the Team 512 garage. Thanks for joining me. We took the old broken trim and replaced it with some new fresh trim. Now, this was a relatively expensive repair done on this car because I had to do both sides. It totaled in somewhere around $440 for the
new trim, plus some of the gasket sealant material, and also the 3M strip caulk that I bought. So not a cheap fix by any means. Those of you with coupes and convertibles, you don't necessarily have to deal with this issue as bad as some of us that have the hardtops. But you also have some other issues that are different that we don't necessarily have to deal with. So all in all, fairly easy job, and makes a minimal impact visually on the car. You know, every time I got in the car, I had to stare at that driver's side one with the big chunk taken out of it. And yeah, now I don't have to look at that anymore. So I guess that's it. So again, thanks for joining me. If you like what you saw, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit that like button while you're at it. And always leave me some comments. I love interacting with you guys. And don't forget, June 29th at Jimmy's American Grill in Bordentown, New Jersey from 12 to 4. Yellow Vet 04 and I are hosting a Corvette meetup. So we'd love to see you there if you're in the Delaware, New Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania area. Till next time, see ya.